It's official. Bankrupt cryptocurrency lender Celsius Network has now been accused of running a Ponzi scheme. A new report just released by a New York bankruptcy court-appointed examiner finds Celsius was using customer deposits to fund other customers' withdrawals. The examiner also found Celsius used client money to buy $558 million worth of its own cryptocurrency, CEL, in an effort to raise that token's price and increase its value. The flurry of bad news, which hit critical mass last year when crypto exchange FTX went belly up amid Ponzi scheme accusations, doesn't appear to be hurting Bitcoin and Ether. Since FTX declared bankruptcy on November 11th, Bitcoin has surged more than 30% and Ethereum has gained 21%. But how long can these gains continue as calls for regulating crypto continue to mount? And can the SEC minimize the FTX and Celsius contamination without crushing the nascent industry? Joining me now in a Fox Business exclusive is SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce, a.k.a. Crypto Mom. Welcome back, Commissioner Peirce. You know, we now have a second case where a crypto operation allegedly used money customers had deposited, and they surreptitiously used it, allegedly, to prop up other parts of their business. What does this say about the need for regulation in the crypto space?
Well, a couple things to bear in mind. One is that when there's a problem at a centralized entity, there can be problems in the crypto space in centralized entities, just as there are just as the problems arise in traditional finance. So that's one thing to remember, and that is where regulation comes in. We could set up a regulatory framework for centralized entities in the crypto space, and that's something that we need to work on. I've been calling for us to work on that for a long time. Again, it's up to Congress to decide who that regulator should be, but that is an area where you could have regulation.
Yeah, and I know you don't specifically comment on individual cases, but I've been reading this court-appointed examiner's report, and it's pretty damning. It's several hundred pages, but some of the things that we pulled out, there was a point, and they've got this all written out because there were Slack messages, texts. So a WhatsApp user named Patrick sent the CEO, Alex Mashinsky, several Twitter posts, including one that asserted that Celsius CEL, that's their native coin on Celsius, is functionally insolvent on their Ether position. And the same day, that was June 7th, Celsius put out a post on its blog basically pushing back and saying, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead, encouraging people to pile in, saying, quote, Celsius is one of the best risk management teams in the world. Our security team and infrastructure is second to none. Okay, it wasn't. Now, this is my question to you, Commissioner, when a bank CEO that is regulated by the SEC comes out and makes comments that are material to customers and their business, doesn't this mean they have to be held by it and then they could be criminally responsible?
Well, look, those are the kinds, as you alluded to, I can't speak to any particular facts and circumstances here, but what I can say is that the reason that centralized entities, that crypto has come in, is to say when they're centralized entities, there can be problems. And so one way to deal with those problems is to regulate those centralized entities. Another way is to try to decentralize and have things operate peer-to-peer. And when you have centralized entities that are engaging in deception, then that is an area where we can sometimes bring a case, or another regulator, or even, as you suggested, there could be criminal repercussions.
And that would hopefully clean up the entire, as we say, nascent industry. You know, it's employing a lot of people. You don't want to crush it down. But you just said recently in a speech at Duke's Digital Assets Conference that blockchain, cryptography, and zero-knowledge proofs offer solutions better than the government. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Sure, and I think when you're looking at what crypto is for, it's really to enable you to interact with people you don't know, to enable you to enter into transactions with them, because everything is transparent, because everything is on-chain, you can see everything. Now, what has happened in the crypto space is that there are certain points of centralization, and that's where people are saying, well, wait a minute, if you have a centralized entity, then is there room for regulation? There's a lot the industry can do on its own without a regulator coming in. But I think a lot of people might decide that you want to have regulation, but where things are truly decentralized, the decentralization can actually perform some of the functions that regulation would otherwise perform.
And obviously, Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan Chase gets a lot of attention no matter what he speaks about, but he's never written a Valentine to Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. He just said 2 weeks ago, once again, that Bitcoin, this time he used the F word. He said Bitcoin is a fraud and it's a mess. Nobody should be talking about it. Knowing what you know, because you have been very educated about this, is Jamie Dimon wrong when he calls Bitcoin a fraud?
Look, some of the failures that we've seen have nothing to do with any particular crypto asset. And I think the beauty of markets is that people can express their own views. If one person doesn't like Bitcoin, then that person doesn't have to buy it. If another person does, that person can buy it. I think as with anything, people need to do their own homework. They need to think about why they're buying something. They need to look at what they see as the value in it and make their determination based on that. It's really not for me to say yes or no, you should buy this or you shouldn't. You have to really do your homework.
Well, your homework tells you that it is not a fraud?
Look, I'm not going to speak to any particular crypto asset. I think that's not appropriate for a regulator. What I say is that people should be free to make their own decisions about what they want to purchase and what they don't want to purchase. And it is not, the SEC's role is not to come in and say this asset is good, this asset is bad. It's just not the role of government to do that.
Last question here. We have a divided government. Congress can barely agree on when to enter, the Capitol. It's just unbelievable. In the morning, do we get coffee or not? They'll fight about that. We had Senators Kirsten Gillibrand and Cynthia Lummis who had come up with a framework for crypto regulation. And it just feels like people are hoping, even people in the industry, that there will be some type of legislation. How important is it? What would you say to Congress at this point about getting the act on?
I would say there are a lot of questions that Congress could really come in and provide clarity on. Right now, you see the regulators sort of running around trying to get turf in this space, but it really would be better if Congress came in and said, this is the framework we want. So I would love to see that. I think that it is a difficult task for Congress to design something like that, but you've seen a lot of work that's already happened, and I look forward to seeing more coming up soon.
Yeah, it's very much on their shoulders for sure. Commissioner Peirce, thank you very much for coming on to discuss this.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime.